Well, since you are able to edit out all the stuff you don't like, I can speak honestly. I don't expect that we're going to avoid collapse. I'm not sure what it will look like. I mean, and so I simply don't know. I have many different scenarios, but actually we don't know. It's not knowable. I mean, some huge volcano could blow up tomorrow in Indonesia, which reduces the agricultural output of the planet by 40 or 50% for 5 years. How do we know that could happen? It has happened several times in the past. So usually speaking, something which happened in the past could happen again, generally. So that could happen, or epidemics. I mean, I don't know what it will be, but in one way or another, we are so far, globally, we are so far above the population and the consumption levels which can be supported by this planet that I know in one way or another it's going to come back down. So I don't hope to avoid that. I hope that it can occur in a civil way, and I mean civil in a special way, peaceful. Peace doesn't mean that everybody's happy, but it means that conflict isn't solved through violence, through force, but rather in other ways. And so that's what I hope for. That we can, I mean, the planet can support something like 1 billion people, maybe 2 billion, depending on how much liberty and how much material consumption you want to have. If you want more liberty and more consumption, you have to have fewer people. And conversely, you can have more people. I mean, we could even have 8 or 9 billion probably if we have a very strong dictatorship, which is smart. Unfortunately, you never have smart dictatorships. They're always stupid. So, but if you had a smart dictatorship and a low standard of living, you can have it. But we want to have freedom and we want to have a high sentence, so we're going to have 1 billion people. And we're now at 7, so we have to get back down. I hope that this can be slow, relatively slow, and that it can be done in a way which is relatively equal, so that people share the experience and you don't have a few rich, trying to force everybody else to deal with it. So those are my hopes. I mean, these are pretty pessimistic hopes, but that's what lies ahead.
And within that hope, do we need a revolution to come to peace? And if we need a revolution, what kind of revolution do we need?
So a key issue here is the speed of the decline. We hope for a slow decline because that gives you time to adjust. If we had a volcano explosion, that's rapid. Suddenly, overnight, agricultural production went down by 40 or 50%, just like that. The globe can't peacefully adjust to such a shift like that. Depletion of cheap energy is a slow process. There'll still be oil 100 years from now, but it'll be much more expensive. We have a chance to adjust to that in a more or less peaceful way. So a key question is, what is the force that we're trying to adjust to? And if we know the speed, then that tells us something about the kind of revolution we need. Of course, it comes to the question, what do you mean by revolution? Do you mean, revolution generally means a drastic shift in structure. So there's political revolutions. You shift from a king to a communist dictatorship, as happened in Russia back in 1920. That was a revolution. Or there are psychological revolutions. One guy came up to me this morning and said, I just quit smoking. And and he's very excited about that, which he should be. That's for him a revolution. So it's a question, what kind of revolutions are you mean? Well, we need them at both levels. We need personal revolutions. We need people to reimagine a lifestyle which requires much less energy and material. You even can do that, in a place like the Netherlands. Actually, the Netherlands is a great example of efficiency. I mean, compared with the Americans, the typical city liver and person who lives in the city in Netherlands uses much less energy and materials than the typical person living in a city in the United States. But you could do much better at the personal level, and then at the national level and the international level, you need these other kind of revolutions. I mean, it will be a big revolution to bring companies and governments to really give importance to the long term. That would be a revolution. In some ways, it would be quite simple. I mean, there are easy things to do and hard things to do. I'll give you just an example. An easy thing to do. Now, at least in the United States, we reward senior executives by the price of the stock in the company. Even every quarter or every year, or when they leave the company, they are rewarded according to the price of the stock, which gives them very bad incentives because they reduce expenditures on research, for example, in order to increase, or they fire a lot of people in order to reduce their costs, because that gives a short-term profit. But we could easily say, we will reward you by the value of our stock 5 years after you go. So you have to do, before you leave, you have to make sure that you left the company in a situation so that 5 years from now it's going to be successful. See, that doesn't require a new national law. It doesn't require a new consciousness. It's quite a simple administrative change. You could do that, but it would be revolutionary in what it would cause, the incentives it would cause. And then at the other extreme, you have, some problems like to deal with complexity, you split things up into specialties. So in your parliament, you have the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Transport, etc. We all know that a decision made in one ministry has enormous consequences for the other ministries. By and large, this person makes those decisions without asking those people. And rather they should do it together, but it's hard to do it together if you under the current circuit. So that would be a real revolution to start getting it so that a minister of, let's say, agriculture would do something which actually makes the farming situation seem worse in the short term, but means 5 years from now you have less energy requirement or less environmental damage or something like that. That would be a hard revolution. We need all of those kinds of things.